Hello amigos, welcome to episode number 18 of this channel. We're gonna continue taking photos of hummingbirds. In episode number 16, we went to the house of a good friend of ours that had hundreds of hummingbirds that were coming to the feeders every morning. And we were able to take photos with natural light, having our camera at high speed, relatively high ISO, and we were able to get some nice images like this one. But then we had a second opportunity to come to the same location, this time with my friend Keith Bauer, and to bring with us a multi-flash setup. Now, if we take photos with flash, if we use a single flash like this one, we can very easily create images that have very harsh shadows. And to get more natural results, what we can do is lower the power on the flash unit to use it more like field light. And even better is to also take our unit, move it away from the camera, and use an extension cord and position the flash at a different angle to illuminate the bird. That combination of field light and different angle, can give us, very pleasing results. But this time, we had a system with 4 different flash units. So this is what we did. We took flour, put it in a clamp on a tripod, and behind the flower we had an image of a bush, autofocus image, printed in matte paper. We put it a couple of feet behind the flower, and we used one of the flash units to illuminate from an angle that image that was printed and we had behind the flower. The other 3 units were in front of the flower at a distance of about 3 feet or so, illuminating the bird from different angles and different heights. That combination of 3 different units, gave us a very nice light around the bird and around the flower. Now, to be able to get nice images, it's a combination of 3 different things. Number 1 is technology. Technology is we need to know the controls of our flashes to be able to dial the power that we need, to be able to control and program the transmitter so that when we fire the camera, the transmitter sends the signal to all the flashes and all the flashes can fire at the same time, and the settings that we need in the camera, and to be able to be familiar with all of that. Number 2 is the artistic side. The combination of angles, distances, to be able to create the effect that we want. And the third one is just as important, is luck. Because the hummingbirds come in, we don't know necessarily in what angle, from what direction they're coming in. They also, they beat their wings 70 to 200 times a second. So when we fire the unit and the flashes fire, we don't know in what position the wings are going to be captured on the final image. For example, here you have this image. It looks very dark because the flashes didn't fire. And if I go to Lightroom and increase the exposure in that image 2 or 3 stops, you get to see something like this. The hummingbird had approached the flower. The blob between the hummingbird and the flower was a bee. It would have been great if the flashes had fired and I had captured a sharp image of the hummingbird with a good wing position and the bee between the hummingbird and the flower. But it just didn't happen. Here you have this other image where the hummingbird came in from the right. The wings are in a very nice position, but we don't see enough of the head. We don't see the eye of the bird. Here you have this other one where the bird is right in front of us, reaching out to the flower, but the wings are really not in a good position. And yet this other one, where now we have a good position of the body of the hummingbird, but the wings really don't show. And with a little bit of luck, then we end up with images like this other one, where the body's in a good position, the wings are stretched, where we can actually see them. The head and the beak of the hummingbird are sharp, and also the flower. So images like this one is what we're after. So here I'm going to show you a selection of images that I took this morning, already edited in Lightroom. I'll see you in a minute. Well, what do you think of the images? Very nice images, different effect. Because the flashes fire at about 1/8,000 of a second, they can freeze the wing movement in the image, creating very nice results at the end. And we can do that with a relatively low ISO, so the images are very clear and with very low noise. If you want to see some great examples of bird photography, both in natural light and with multi-flash units, and also nature photography, go to the website of my friend Keith Bauer, and I'll put it right here. He's a great photographer, and he has many great images that you can enjoy on his site. Another great site is the one of my friend Greg Basco, who lives in Costa Rica. He owns a company that leads photographic tours in Costa Rica and also in parts of South America. Greg is very good. He's a magician when it comes to multi-flash units, and he's very creative. So go to his site and you can see the great work that he does, and also some of the descriptions of how he captured those images. I hope you're liking this series of videos on this channel, and I ask you that please you subscribe and giving me a thumbs up, and send me comments and ideas for future episodes. Now in the next few minutes, if you want to continue with the video, I'm going to leave you with a detailed edit in Lightroom of one of the images that we took that morning, and take it from beginning to end in Lightroom. I hope you stay along, and if not, we'll see you next time. Well, here is the original raw image straight from the camera. As you can see, we have enough room around the flower because we didn't know in what direction the hummingbird was going to be coming from. So now what we can do first is try to get the composition that we want. We don't need so much dead space. I'm going to rotate the image a bit. I'm going to turn off the lights in Lightroom. That helps us get a better composition. And I think this is looking pretty nice. Okay, so now let's talk about what we want to do in this image. I think the first thing I want to work on is on the background. I'm not very pleased with the very bright green background. Now we can use the profiles in Lightroom. We have Adobe Color. We can try Adobe Standard. That one gives us a green that is not as saturated. But even better, I think, are some of the other profiles. I like Artistic number 3. I think it gives us a very nice and pleasing background. And the nice thing about the profiles is that we can also reduce the amount. We go to 0, that's the original photo, and we increase it, the profile is being magnified, in something around 70-75%, I think provides a more pleasing background. So let's close that profile. So now that we have the profile in the basic image that we want to edit, first thing I want to do is to do some global edits. I still think the background is a little too bright, so I'm going to reduce the exposure a bit, and we can always make up the exposure on the flower and on the hummingbird later. We're going to reduce the highlights a bit. We're going to open up the shadows. We're going to push out the whites. until we start seeing white specks, and then we back off a bit, and we'll do the same thing with the blacks in the opposite direction, and that gives us enough contrast for the image at this stage. I'm not going to use texture or clarity at this time, because if I do it, it will apply it to all the photo, and I don't want to do that. So we're going to go to the saturation and luminance panel. We're going to reduce the saturation in the background a bit by pushing down. But I want to increase the saturation on the flower, so we'll push it up. We go to luminance, and we'll do the same thing. I want to reduce the luminance in the background a bit more and increase the luminance in the flower up a bit. So now we have the flower done. Next, we go to detail. We apply some sharpening, something like 70 or 80 points. Increase the details to about 50. I mean, we can take our time, but I know these settings, give us very good results. And then we're going to apply some masking. This photo was taken at ISO 200, so has very little or no noise, but still I don't want to sharpen any noise that may be there. And then finally, I'm going to apply a slight vignette, something like minus 13 points, and we're going to feather quite a bit, so it looks very natural. So far, so good. So now I want to focus on the hummingbird. I want to apply some exposure, some texture, some clarity, perhaps some saturation, and try to get the hummingbird to pop a little bit more. To do that, we have a few options. The one that I'm going to use is I'm going to use that radio filter. I'm going to turn on the mask overlay, and it selects more than just the hummingbird. And now I want to erase the areas outside the hummingbird. We have a few options for that. We could use the mask, or we can just use the brush and erase. That's what I'm going to do. So I go to erase. I'm going to delete the auto mask so that Lightroom is a little faster. I'm going to increase the size of the brush and delete, and try not to get close to the bird just yet. And now I turn the mask. I use a slightly smaller brush, and now I stay outside and just come close to the bird. So now we have our bird selected. So now let's apply the local controls that we want to do. So we select that radio filter. As I told you, I want to increase exposure a bit, not much. Apply some texture that applies texture to the very fine details of the bird. I'm going to apply a little clarity that increases contrast to the midtones. I'm going to apply a little saturation to make the bird pop a little bit more. And I think that's looking very nice. The next thing that I want to do is focus on the eye of the bird. So if we magnify the eye, we can see the eye is fairly sharp, but it does have two different catch lights. So let's erase one of them so that the end result will look more natural. So we go to our clone and heal brush. We have a very small selection. We select the smaller one, and it gets erased. So that was the final image. It looks, I think, very nice. Let's compare it with the original image. So here we have on the left the original image cropped with the original green background. We ended up changing to artistic 3 profile, decreasing the exposure and saturation of the background, increasing the luminance and the saturation of the flower. And then we selected the hummingbird, and there we apply a little exposure, texture, clarity, and saturation. And now here is the final image. What do you think? Do you like it?